What's going on? So, did y'all see that video where Denzel Washington cooked that interviewer? That turkey was wearing a Stanley Kubrick t-shirt, and he was trying to play Denzel. He said, "Oh, what was your favorite Stanley Kubrick movie?" Because Kubrick was a big-time filmmaker. You know, as a kid, I did watch A Clockwork Orange, which was a sci-fi movie, which got a lot of love, but I wasn't like all up on the cat. But I watched that movie. I do feel like I wasted a day of my time watching Eyes Wide Shut because that was the one with Tom Cruise and Nicole Kidman. And that film was one of the most non-charismatic films I've ever seen in my life. So I feel like I wasted time with that. But Denzel told him, he said, look, I was a 70s black boy who was watching Superfly and Shaft. Your movies didn't cater to my neighborhood or what I was going through. Some people got offended by this because they think, well, Denzel's Renaissance man. He's done Broadway, he's done theater, he's done plays. They kind of got in. Some didn't take exception at all. How do I feel about it? Denzel was shooting from the hip. Denzel does not like bougie, corny interviewers asking him the most mundane things. He's not going to sit there and talk about films and get into all of that. He's not into that historic thing. He's aware of stuff, but he was working on his craft at the time. He was more endeared to James Earl Jones seeing that. Gotta remember. And so many times it is racial. Let me tell you why. So many times than not, people got this because they got privilege. They think because you black. See, it works in this way. Well, you're born here and everything is white geared, so you should think like that. They never think that you're going to think about your world. Because if your world ain't about the hippest dance trends or the clothes or the music or what's happening, you don't really pay it the same. Especially not in the film game. And I always took exception to the so-called black exploitation. There was no exploitation. Hollywood needed that money to keep their lights running. Hollywood needed that to sell because they didn't have no big blockbusters. Well, until you got to The Godfather, but really until you got to Jaws and Star Wars. When you got sci-fi, that's when the Spielbergs and George Lucas and those cats, obviously Martin Scorsese had some clout and Francis Ford Coppola and that, but it was the sci-fi game that kicked the loot. But in the meantime, it was the black actors and folks that was keeping things going. If they weren't so racist in Hollywood, Fred Williamson would have been as big as Burt Reynolds. Would have been big. Was there for the taking. You had Pam Grier, Vanetta McKee, Max Julian, Ron O'Neal. You had talent. Rudy Ray Moore was making independent film. How is Rudy Ray Moore not seen as like a black version of Woody Allen with comedy? You know, when you think about it, I mean, it was there. They're the ones who choose to use black folks as tax write-offs and deductions. But anyway, yeah, if you grew up around that time period and you weren't getting no Oscars, Oscars always was white. I want somebody white to come at me and explain to me, how do you go from Hattie McDaniel to Halle Berry winning that Oscar in '03 when you going, oh, the equivalent of what? Let me do the math. You're talking what? 60 years? Come on now. To win some token award? Or Sidney Poitier to Denzel Washington? Come on now. You talking 35 years, 40 years? I mean, come on now. Do you realize what you're saying? Do you understand why it's so racist, so systematic, institutionalized? And then you wonder like, well, I thought you would know what we know. Don't care. Because them awards and all them shows, how about our black filmmakers? How about speaking about that? So Denzel put this turkey in check. Of course, he's going to ask him about, because the dude ain't going to go up asking about Gordon Parks. He ain't going to ask him about Mervyn Peoples or Michael Schultz or Robert Townsend or Oscar Micheaux. Because they really don't know much more behind Spike Lee. They're going to tell you about Isaac Davis. Black filmmakers, people that were creating, you know, so on and so forth. They're not going to talk about that. Unless, of course, it makes crossover loop. But Denzel's one of them brothers, he keeps it 100. And that's why it went the way it did. So I like how Denzel checked that viewer about Stanley Kubrick. That's not saying Denzel, because Denzel's aware of him. But Denzel, you grew up at a certain time, culture, vibe, etc. You weren't checking stuff like that, especially if you or trying to see something that look like you when you don't have that. We're not that far removed from that. A lot of what you see now with black folks on TV and sports and having choices, ain't that, it hasn't been that long. Hasn't been that long. Because America ain't never shared. And Hollywood is big time guilty of that on purpose. Please like, subscribe, welcome thoughts, comments, and I do respond. Thank you. Wash your hands. Keep your mind clear. Watch out for another and share if you like, and hit that membership. Stay safe, stay blessed, stay woke, stay free. I'm out one time. Peace.